Hi, I'm Sue. Thank you for joining me for today's Bible reading for January 13th. I'm reading today Genesis 38 to 40 from the World English Bible. Verse 1. At that time, Judah went down from his brothers and visited a certain Adulamite whose name was Hira. There, Judah saw the daughter of a certain Canaanite man named Shua. He took her and went into her. She conceived and bore a son, and he named him She conceived again and bore a son, and she named him Onan. She yet again bore a son, and named him Shelah. He was at Jezib when she bore him. Judah took a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. Judah's firstborn, was wicked in Yahweh's sight, so Yahweh killed him. Judah said to Onan, "Go into your brother's wife and perform the duty of a husband's brother to her, and raise up offspring for your brother." Onan knew that the offspring wouldn't be his, and when he went in to his brother's wife, he spilled his semen on the ground, lest he should give offspring to his brother. The thing which he did was evil in Yahweh's sight, and he killed him also. Then Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, "Remain a widow in your father's house until Shelah my son is grown up." For he said, lest he also die like his brothers. Tamar went and lived in her father's house. After many days, Shua's daughter, the wife of Judah, died. Judah was comforted and went up to his sheep shears to Timnah, he and his friend Hira the Adulamite. Tamar was told, "Behold, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep." She took off the garments of her widowhood and covered herself with a veil, wrapped herself, and sat at the gate of Enaim, which is on the way to Timnah, for she saw that Shelah was grown up. She wasn't given to him as a wife. When Judah saw her, he thought that she was a prostitute, for she had covered her face. He turned to her by the way and said, "Please come. Let me come in to you," for he didn't know that she was his daughter-in-law. She said, "What will you give me that you may come in to me?" He said, "I will send you a young goat from the flock." She said, "Will you give me a pledge until you send it?" He said, "What pledge will I give you?" She said, "Your signet and your cord and your staff that is in your hand." He gave them to her and came in to her, and she conceived by him. She arose and went away and put off her veil from her and put on the garments of her widowhood. Judah sent the young goat by the hand of his friend the Adulamite to receive the pledge from the woman's hand, but he didn't find her. Then he asked the men of her place, saying, "Where is the prostitute that was at Enaim by the road?" They said, "There has been no prostitute here." He returned to Judah and said, "I haven't found her," and also the men of the place said, "There has been no prostitute here." Judah said, "Let her keep it, lest we be shamed. Behold, I sent this young goat, and you haven't found her." About 3 months later, Judah was told, "Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has played the prostitute. Moreover, behold, she is with child by prostitution." Boy, this is just more dysfunction in this big family, isn't it? Um, like I said the other day, it's interesting that God used them anyway to bring the Messiah through this line. There's no perfect human, no perfect person. And it also goes to this battle. Ever since God said that the seed of the serpent would crush the head, or the seed of the woman would crush the head of the serpent, the devil has been trying to stop God's plans. And so it's no doubt that he came against his family in so many ways. So let's see where I left off. So they said Tamar was playing the prostitute and pregnant. Verse 24, Judah said, "Bring her out and let her be burned." When she was brought out, she went to her father-in-law, saying, "I am with child by the man who owns these." She also said, "Please discern whose these are, the signet, the cord, and the staff." Judah acknowledged them and said, "She is more righteous than I, because I didn't give her to Shelah my son." He knew her again no more. And let me stop. That signet ring, the cords, and the staff, all three have a significant um, inference and purpose and symbolism, and you could probably do a really good study on those three things if you were interested. Verse 26, Judah acknowledged them and said, "She is more righteous than I, because I didn't give her to Shelah my son." He knew her again no more. In the time of her travail, behold, twins were in her womb. When she travailed, one put out a hand, and the midwife took and tied a scarlet thread on his hand, saying, "This came out first." As he drew back his hand, behold, his brother came out, and she said, "Why have you made a breach for yourself?" Therefore his name was called Perez, which means breaking out. Afterward his brother came, who had the scarlet thread on his hand, and his name was called Zerah. Joseph was brought down to Egypt. Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him from the hand of the Ishmaelites that had brought him down there. So we just jumped stories here back to Joseph in Egypt. And it says Yahweh was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man. He was in the house of his master the Egyptian. His master saw that Yahweh was with him, and that Yahweh made all that he did prosper in his hand. Joseph found favor in his sight. He ministered to him, and Potiphar made him overseer over his house and all that he had put in his hand. From the time that he made him overseer in his house and over all that he had, Yahweh blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. Yahweh's blessing was on all that he had in the house and in the field. He left all that he had in Joseph's hand. He didn't concern himself with anything except for the food which he ate. Joseph was well built and handsome. After these things, his master's wife set her eyes on Joseph, and she said, "Lie with me." So there goes the devil again. Nothing new under the sun, right? I mean, people are people, no matter the age, no matter the country, different customs, different, social rules, but people do not change. Same temptations, same, you know, uh, even people, how do I want to say, the stratum of morality, some people with extreme integrity that still sometimes mess up, all the way down to people truly wicked who don't care, ruthless. Verse 8. But he refused and said to his master's wife, "Behold, my master doesn't know what is with me in the house, and he has put all that he has into my hand. No one is greater in this house than I am, and he has not kept back anything from me but you, because you're his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" As she spoke to Joseph day by day, he didn't listen to her, to lie by her, or to be with her. About this time he went into the house to do his work, and there was none of the men of the house inside. She caught him by his garment, saying, "Lie with me." He left his garment in her hand and ran outside. When she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and had run outside, she called to the men of her house and spoke to them, saying, "Behold, he has brought a Hebrew into us to mock us. He came in to lie with me, and I cried with a loud voice. When he heard that I lifted up my voice and cried, he left his garment by me and ran outside." She laid up his garment by her until his master came home. She spoke to him according to these words, saying, "The Hebrew servant whom you have brought to us came in to me to mock me. And as I lifted up my voice and cried, he left his garment by me and ran outside." When his master heard the words of his wife, which she spoke to him, saying, "This is what your servant did to me," his wrath was kindled. Joseph's master took him and put him into prison, the place where the king's prisoners were bound, and he was there in custody. But Yahweh was with Joseph and showed kindness to him and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. The keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners who were in the prison. Now, isn't it interesting that God could have done anything? I mean, he gave him kindness in prison, but he didn't get him out. You see that? Sometimes we just have to trust God where we are and let him come and do his thing. Because we see through the big picture of the story, God was working out the best for everybody in the long run. And we'll see that coming up with the famine that happens. So it says, the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners who were in the prison. Whatever they did there, he was responsible for it. The keeper of the prison didn't look after anything that was under his hand, because Yahweh was with him, and that which he did, Yahweh made it prosper. After these things, the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker offended their lord, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was angry with his two officers, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker. He put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guard, into the prison, the place where Joseph was bound. The captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph, and he took care of them. They stayed in prison many days. They both dreamed a dream, each man his dream. In one night, each man according to the interpretation of his dream, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were bound in prison. Joseph came into them in the morning and saw them, and saw that they were sad. He asked Pharaoh's officers who were with him in custody in his master's house, saying, "Why do you look so sad today?" So see, he even interacted with his prisoners. Anyway, let me keep reading. Verse 8, they said to him, "We have dreamed a dream, and there is no one who can interpret it." Joseph said to them, "Don't interpretations belong to God? Please tell me." Now remember, they didn't know they were talking to a dreamer. Joseph's been dreaming since he was a kid. We already saw the two dreams he dreamt about his family bowing down to him. And so he's interested in these things. He's into that, right? So he's like, cool. He's living life to the fullest. He's interacting with them while he's doing his prison work, and he's still interested in what he's interested in. And so Here he gets blessed with this conversation about dreams, which he loves. And so he says, don't interpretations belong to God? Please tell it to me. And I'm sure he's thinking God's going to give me the interpretation because it's a gift that he had. Verse 9, the chief cupbearer told his dream to Joseph and said to him, in my dream, behold, a vine was in front of me, and in the vine were 3 branches. It was as though it budded, it blossomed, and its cluster produced ripe grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. Joseph said to him, this is its interpretation. The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 more days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your office. You will give Pharaoh's cup into his hand the way you did when you were his cupbearer. But remember me when it's well with you. Please show kindness to me and make mention of me to Pharaoh and bring me out of this house. For indeed I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also I have done nothing that they should put me into the dungeon. So he's like, okay, dude, I interpreted your dream for you. When you get up there, don't forget me. You know, I've been taking care of you here, and I didn't do anything to deserve being here. So help me out. In fact, I've been rejected my whole life. I'm ready to get out of here. Verse 16. When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, he said to Joseph, I also was in my dream, and behold, 3 baskets of white bread were on my head. In the uppermost basket were all kinds of baked food for Pharaoh, and the birds ate them out of the basket on my head. Joseph answered, this is its interpretation. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 more days, Pharaoh will lift up your head from off of you and will hang you on a tree, and the birds will eat your flesh from off of you. Oh, how terrible. How terrible to be told that. On the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, he made a feast for all of his servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief cupbearer and the head of the chief baker among his servants. He restored the chief cupbearer to his position again, and he gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker, as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet the chief cupbearer didn't remember Joseph, but forgot him. That's the end of today's reading. Be sure to join me tomorrow for this continuing saga. God bless you for now.